everybody. This is Sylvia from Sylvia's Odyssey, and today we have a special guest, Sonia Evans, Reverend Sonia Evans, formerly of Ten of Cups Ministries from Sophia Returns. Welcome, Sonia. I'm so happy to have you here. What an honor.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm just blessed and honored to be bringing this information and just sharing with you and your audience today. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's about to get real, everybody. We're here to
It's
drop
about
some
to get very real.
truth bombs, inconvenient truths, right? Like Al Gore's video, but only real.
Well, the thing about the truth is, it indeed will set you free. Sometimes it will piss you off first, but it will set you free. And I think that a reason why so many of these templates are collapsing, especially this year, in the twin flame narrative, or the false twin flame program, as I like to call it, or interfacing system, one of the reasons why it is collapsing this year is because we have that universal 5-year of freedom.
Oh, wow.
And with freedom comes sovereignty. So it's very important for, at least as God's sources commissioned me to kind of expose this. And the ironic thing is that I started out as a twin flame teacher, and that's where people most popularly know my work. And I'm not saying that twin flames are not a thing. We'll definitely get into that in a minute. But there is this infection that has come in with it that has kept a lot of people in this spin cycle with these siphoning systems and some other things I'd like to talk about. And it's very important, as hard as it is to hear.
Right.
So,
and like, of course it would infect that area, right? Because wherever there's a lot of light, it's going to magnetize the dark, because the dark ultimately wants to go home. It wants to, it wants to get out of here. It doesn't want to stay here, but it doesn't know any better. So that's all it knows. It's limited. And like you always say, the dark ultimately always serves the light.
It does. And that's why I think one of the first things I want to emphasize before we get into the call is that it's an initiation. Many of us on the ascension path go through the twin flame thing, and it is part of an initiation that serves to really activate many things. One is for, especially for the feminine, is raising our own masculine, because a lot of us get into these situations because our masculine's offline and there's nobody really protecting or creating boundaries or discerning these different things through the truth lens that the masculine energy tends to have. So it's self-love, it's looking at our stuff. There's a lot of positive things that come out of it.
Right.
I think the problem is where people get stuck in some of the teachings that end up being consciousness traps, and they never get out of it. And they're waiting. I've had clients that have been waiting for union from somebody who's married and with somebody else, and they haven't talked to them in years, or a narcissist that's just treating them so poorly, and they just keep thinking, if I keep doing all this inner work and I keep doing all this stuff, maybe things will shift. And it's what I call a labyrinth. People get caught in these labyrinths and they go this way, and like, maybe if I heal that, this will happen. And maybe if I go there, union will occur. And it just never happens because it's not meant to. It's a dangling carrot on many levels. So it's very important, I think, for us to kind of unpack what that entails for anybody who is watching the call, watching this podcast, who really wants to get free from this. Because the interesting thing is, with most of the people I've talked to who are in twin flame things, they feel so connected and almost bound to this person. But a lot of them, they express, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
It's exhausting. Yeah. And what's really interesting is we've really been groomed for that corrupted twin flame thing, because watching my own mother and my grandmothers, like, they stayed in some bullshit, and like it was like applauded because he makes good money or whatever ridiculous excuse, and so you think in your mind, I'm supposed to stay here, I'm supposed, ride or die, right? All the songs are about fuck that shit. No, I'm ride or die for Sylvia, because who's protecting Sylvia? Nobody. Right. And that's ultimately what I figured out is I looked at the mess times 2, because I thought I was in it twice, and how ridiculous, with clairvoyant abilities, being psychic, looking down timelines. I fell for it. And so it can happen to anybody. And like, it doesn't mean for me that it's not a thing, but the way my guidance explained it to me is, females are born with all the eggs they're going to have, right? But it doesn't mean that they're going to be a mother. It's a possibility. The potential
Yes.
is there for all
Yeah.
females to be mothers. It doesn't mean that they're going to choose it, because it's fucking hard work to heal. It is hard.
Yes.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And in the face of adversity, in the face of people thinking that you're crazy, that you're ridiculous, and like doing it anyway, and like, because you can't not do it. It's not like you're choosing to do it. You can't not do it. That's what you came here for. And so, and we're constantly being redirected to heal, even though when you say, fuck this shit, I want to quit, I don't want to do this anymore.
Oh yeah.
No, you agreed to this, boom, here you go. And like, it's a calling, right? And so
it is.
I feel like for the men that I thought were that they, yes, there was contracts. Yes, we were supposed to do certain things. They were supposed to wake up, but they didn't, and they chose not to. And that's when I realized, oh, he has a say. There's free will. He can choose. And just because I think that they really believed that they were strong enough to fulfill the contracts that we had with both men. And like, when you're in it, you're like, oh my God, I'm drowning. I can't do this, because it's hard. And like, you know, healing and facing your trauma, that is really scary. And not a lot of people can do it. I mean, look at, we're watching the world collapse, right?
Yeah. It's very difficult to do. And I think it's probably a little more so difficult for men because, you know, in most cultures, the men are trained to, or you know, conditioned or programmed to not look at their emotions, or, you know, there's so much programming that's thrown at them. And so on that note, I do want to say, you know, when we kind of just take everything that we've learned about twin flames and what it is and the two souls in one and blah, 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 if we just put that to the side for a second, I think a lot of us have been with people that we've had the potential to have timelines with of what I would consider to be sacred partnership. However, you know, the problem I think comes in from, and this is what I do see a lot, because I have a lot of women who come to me and they're like, you know, something's stopping this, something's keeping this from coming online. And more often than not, it is the masculine not really connecting with his truth. However, one thing that I do see, and this is what kind of comprises a lot of this whole false twin flame interfacing system that I have kind of committed myself to help collapsing out of people's fields, is that what in these situations, much of the time, what people are drawing into themselves is they're not drawing a partner from an opened and free heart portal. Yeah. They're attracting them from the pain body. And so what happens is we draw somebody who kind of holds all of the architecture of our wounded masculine or feminine. So what I do find is that we have women, and I've seen many women, had many clients who say that, you know, the man doesn't really seem to see them as they are. They don't see the potential in the relationship. They're just not aligned with their truth. And but then, you know, when you go into their story, you find that there is a lot of really not living authentically or grounding in your truth either. So there is a certain level of the mirror effect that does play out here, but there is an oversimplification of it too that comes from this teaching that comes in twin flame circles, where everything that they do is a mirror of you. And that's not the case. Sometimes you're just with an asshole. Sometimes that's all it is. And you just need to recognize that.
Or they're hijacked, because I saw demonic beings in both of them. So
yeah. And this is what I wanted to teach here. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because there's different ways that this whole scenario plays out. And one of them, and you have to take into account here that everybody, just about everybody who seems to end up in this situation is an ascending being, you know, a star seed, high angelic, indigo, soul, or whatever. And what does tend to happen is that this person who is, you know, not doing any of the inner work. And of course, you have to realize that these dark entities will work through your trauma and your unhealed stuff. That's how they get a foothold. So when you're working with somebody, if you're a person who is working to, you know, ascend and raise your frequency and move up into these higher bandwidths, and you're with somebody who's not embodying the work, doesn't even see any need to, you're with somebody whose field is wide open to be manipulated. And so what does tend to happen is you get targeted, especially the higher, more powerful your purpose is, the more that you get this targeting that comes in, where these hyperdimensional forces will set you up with somebody whom they will use as a puppet to emotionally abuse you, to keep you traumatized, to keep you in this loop where your energy is being siphoned and harvested through your heartache. Because we both know that these entities feed off your heartache, they feed off your devastation, they feed off your confusion. They want to get you confused about who you are and who God is, and God doesn't love me, why is this happening? Keep you in that victimizer kind of loop. And so that's what these people are sent in to do. So it is kind of like, how you hear about targeted individuals, but it's something that happens hyperdimensionally. And it's really to just wreck you and derail you completely.
And also to steal your sexual energy, because whether you're having sex with them or you're thinking of them while you're doing something else, it's the same thing. It's feeding off of you, and it's taking your creative energy, and you're opening the door to them to let them in. It's like a loophole, right? To let them siphon from you because you called them. It's kind of like a vampire, like in Lost Boys, how they need your permission, your invitation to come in, and like
absolutely.
And so
and
you're inviting them because
Yep,
I've noticed that neither one will reach out. I always have to be the one to initiate, and I find that really weird. But then when I do initiate, it's like, okay, now you're mine. Now I'm just gonna, dominate everything, and it's gonna be like this, and this, and like your sovereignty's gone. You're in a cage, and it's not.
Or
healthy.
the flip side of this that I do see quite a bit is people are like, okay, I'm done with this. I can't deal with this anymore. And they start going their own way. And then he reappears and they think it's twin flame reunion or he's coming back in, and they get pulled back into it. And it's just a big mind fuck that's going on. And I forgot where I was going. I was about to go somewhere and I forgot where I was going with this.
So what would be the solution for that? If they do come back, how would you handle that?
Well, here's the thing. You have to take into account, I do have experiences with clients who have had a relationship that I would consider to be, emotionally abusive or at least devaluing. Because here's the thing that people need to understand, that the new earth template for relationships is built entirely on devotion. When you are dealing with a true Christic masculine that has come in to your life, he's ready to build with you. He has that true Christic devotion. And what these rod and staff pairings are, and this is just the hierogamical template of the Sophianic essence, the Holy Mother, and the Christic essence of the Holy Father. What happens is that the feminine typically holds the Sophianic note, the masculine typically holds the Christic note, and he comes to in full devotion to Sophia, covering her in full devotion to her. So what I do see a lot are these kind of wishy-washy, sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm not. I'll call you if I feel like it. I'll ghost you if I don't feel like talking to you. I've got all these other girls on the side. And people are trying to make this into something sacred. But if you took the label away and some of these teachings, by very well-meaning people, and I know a lot of twin flame teachers, I love them dearly, but they've kind of swallowed the Kool-Aid too. And I did too for quite some time. And so when somebody does come back in acting, after you've decided to cut the cords, this is where boundaries come in. This is where the feminine really needs to raise up her masculine. And really, this is what will draw your true Christic partner to you, is Hieros Gamos, which is that balance of your own sacred feminine and masculine energies. And what I do see in a lot of light workers and starseeds, especially the feminine, is they're very collapsed into their feminine energy, and there's no masculine online. So it's all about, love and I accept you, and they're flinging the door wide open, but there's no protector because the masculine,
a doormat.
Yeah, exactly.
A yes man, right? Because that's how I was, because my ex embodied all the wounding that my father did on me. And I was very abused by my father, and I get my father's soul signature from him. And I think subconsciously I was obsessed with him because I was desperately trying to heal the abuse from my father through him. And he was trying to heal his abuse through me, but it was just, it wasn't
And at the end of the day, that's what these relationships provide the opportunity to have happen, is for both parties to heal. But if you're doing the work and you're with somebody who's
Yeah,
chasing money and sitting in front of the ball game all day and is looking for the next promotion, they're not on the same page as you, and there's no way that you can really manifest a sacred partnership that involves planetary service on behalf
right,
of God's source with somebody who doesn't even know what that is or care or sees any
right.
need for it. And a
Yeah,
lot of women are just have this fixation on this sort of what I call inverted masculine energy, or this juvenile masculine energy that, has no idea what they really stand for. They have no access to their own truth, their own feminine energies, and they're wondering why they're not getting anywhere. However, the problem is that in popular twin flame teachings, they teach that this is a stage, that you need to do this, that you need to pine away and chase this man and just throw caution to the wind and not activate your masculine energy that will provide you with the ability to kind of look logically, because sometimes we do need that. We need to think
right.
critically and logically from time to time, sometimes a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
that, yeah,
And you
so
know what's really interesting is that in you saying that, it made me see how I was being a victim when I was with him, and how he
mhm.
was being a victim. And like, if there's two victims, nobody's gonna save nobody.
Exactly. It's like I'm looking for it from you, you're looking from it from me, but we're
Yeah,
getting it from nowhere.
right.
So that is the old relationship template that's falling. And this is what a lot of the twin flame dynamics that at least I've seen are based on. And it's kind of held in place by a lot of teachings that sound good on paper, but when you kind of really unpack it, it's like, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
Right. But see, that's the key right there, is you have to look at it and look at the evidence, because you have to
Mhm.
put everything on the table, all the shitty stuff and the good stuff, because the evidence that the corrupted light or whatever will give you is very compelling. So
It is.
I mean,
It
he
is.
does freaking astral project into my bedroom. We have dream connection. We have telepathy. All the things, yes.
Yeah,
However,
we're
there's
together in
also
5D. That's one I hear a lot. We're together in 5D. And what people need to realize is that there is this false, the best word I can use for it is the false ascension matrix, which comes in out of the astral realms and also the inverted fifth dimension, where there's a lot of illusion. There's holographic inserts, which are just kind of beliefs and images and all this stuff that's kind of put into your mental body. So it looks and feels real, like something that's
yeah,
really happening, but it's something that is being inserted into the light body that is inorganic. This is the reason why, sometimes, you might be feeling like you're having a telepathic conversation, or you may have some dream, or you might feel like they're in the room with you. And then you look and you see 1111, 555. The dark can manipulate
right,
synchronicities. Not all synchronicities come from God's source.
yeah,
You can be in the wrong place at the right time, or the right place at the wrong time. There are manipulated synchronicities and simulations that a lot of us get set up in. And, I think that one of the unfortunate things, and maybe even disempowering things within spiritual circles, and especially the New Age community, is just this belief that there is no dark, or it's a mirror of your shadow, or it just turns a blind eye to that and places all of the responsibility on you. You're creating it, it's your blocks, it's your story. And and if you notice, and I know I was stuck in that kind of frame of mind for a very long time and wasn't really getting any breakthroughs until God started to show me the truth, and I really started to collapse that out from a place of truth. And I will tell you that I went through the false light interfacing system. I went through it a couple of times. But one time in particular, this is when I was working with a lot of different guides, a lot of ascended masters. I didn't have the discernment that I have now. So I was kind of just like, oh, okay, if you're showing up and telling me you're this and that, we're good, that kind of thing.
right,
And I remember that these guides, this particular set of guides, told me that I was preparing for my twin flame, and all of this information about him. This was maybe in the early 2000s, and it's when I kind of first came across twin flame material. And so I met him. I'm not going to go into the whole story about how it happened, but I did meet him, and I felt the magnetism there. I felt the pull there, and I didn't know it was him at first. But as some time went by, I went to California for a little while. When I came back, he actually worked around the corner from me, and I saw him again. And when we looked in each other's eyes, there was this beautiful charge, right? And then the guides I had at the time came in and said, you just met him. You're missing him. There he is. And I was like, wow. So I began to kind of like show up, not in a stalking kind of way, because he worked at a community center. So I used to go there a lot for different things. But, I started going there a little more, if you know what I mean, with a lot of eyeliner on. And so, I started to go down there, and and then it just kind of worked out that we started to connect, and he started, we were never sexual or anything, but it was just more like a friendship thing. And he would come by the house, and they would tell me all of this stuff. I would have all of these dreams and all of these synchronicities around him. And I was wondering, should I just tell him that he was my twin flame, because I felt like I needed to set it off somehow, right? Yeah. So they said, yes, you should email him and tell him everything that you're thinking. And I remember I was being guided also to kind of look at his MySpace, because MySpace was popular back then. Mm-hmm. And they were like, just go there. And he's leaving all these messages knowing that it's you and all of this bullshit, right? And so I go to his MySpace, and there's a picture of him and his new girlfriend.
Wow.
And I was devastated, crying and just blubbering. And I said, you guys are misleading me. How could you do this to me? How could you say this if this is what's real? And they said, oh, no, don't pay any attention to that. That's just an illusion. He's really your twin flame, and he's going to realize it. So to make a long story short, I did eventually end up telling him. He had no idea what I was talking about. He made it very clear he just wanted to be friends. He had all these other girlfriends and just a life that he very clearly did not want me to be a part of. And it was almost like a torture device. It was like, I was using him to torture myself. So every time he rejected me and didn't want to be with me, or I saw some picture on his social media with some other girl, it was a reason for me to fall apart and hate myself, and I'm not good enough, and all that stuff coming up. And this is what it was. It was this dangling carrot. It was a lot of false light information coming in from the astral realm, a lot of manipulated synchronicities where I'd see his car go by and then 555 on the clock. And you have to understand that that's not always the light setting those up, especially the proof is in what's actually happening. The proof is in what's actually coming together much of the time.
Right.
So to make a long story short, sorry, I'm losing my headphones here, is he ended up moving to Texas, and then we just drifted apart and just never really talked to each other after, a couple of years. But, I say this to say that, you have to test the spirits. When you're getting downloads that are telling you about something or someone and things are not playing out, that's a huge sign, because God is not the author of confusion. Right? So you're not going to get true Christic information about something or someone, and then when you go to cash the check, there's no money there. That God doesn't do that.
Right.
So, I do see that happening a lot. I had one client who swore that her dentist was her twin flame, and every little, all this crazy stuff. She was stalking him at Starbucks, and just little things that he would say, little nuances in his tone or his face, she thought was him acknowledging the union, and she was so stuck in it. I couldn't see her anymore. It was just too hard.
Yeah, the beliefs are strong. It feels like that whole idea of the twin flame is really an agent of chaos, because it causes is chaos. And so what I learned from getting burned, is whatever is meant for me is unstoppable. I no longer force God's hand, because if it's meant for me, it will find me wherever I am, whatever I'm doing. So I'm just focusing on myself, and whatever comes onto my path, my discernment is on turbo now. So, but see, it helped though. Like it taught me a lot. So I feel like it's so important to share that, because a lot of people don't want to admit defeat. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. I don't care. I mean, if it'll help someone, absolutely, we have to share this. It's super important.
Yeah, absolutely.
For young girls watching, my daughter and her friends watch this, and I want them to know, hey, heads up,
Yeah. Well, like we were saying a little earlier, and the point that you brought up is that the dark uses our vulnerabilities and our traumas to get a foothold. That's how they manipulate us. And if we have wounds, especially if we have paternal wounds, father wounds, and we have, just this void in our lives where there was never really a masculine energy, and we have what I call love deprivation syndrome, where we're just so starved for love, that's an easy target to really get manipulated by somebody who has all of the appearance of being your one true love, but then when you scratch the surface, it's a narcissist or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why I do have a big problem with the twin flame signs that are popularly taught. And I never taught them. I never felt comfortable with them, because as somebody who has worked extensively with assisting people with CPTSD from emotional abuse, narc abuse, it's all the same signs. It's all the same
Wow.
symptoms as narcissistic abuse, all of the same ones. And a lot of the times when we first meet someone and there's that powerful charge, that those fireworks, it could be because narcs are empaths, but they use their empathic ability on the flip side. So
Wow.
whatever they can feel that you need to kind of get in, they'll give that to you. You know, and what if you need this wonderful love, that they'll reflect that back to you. Also, a lot of times what we do as empaths, because we're so service to others, and there's a certain level of divine naivete, is that we will project on other people what's really in us, and think that they're on the same page when they're not. Also, a lot of times when we really feel a charge with somebody when we first meet them, we could have a karmic thing with them. There's that recognition that comes in from karmic relationships, because I've had that with platonic relationships with men and women. They certainly weren't my twin flame, but we met them and there was just a resonance.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times we mistake that as some sacred love that from across the stars somewhere. And then you get on some of these websites and YouTube channels and they start pumping you with, yeah, this is the sign, this is it. Yeah, just keep going. And it creates this big, spin cycle.
Right.
For
And
lack
you
of
can't
better
get
term.
off of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
then you feel like you've invested so much time into it. And then you're like, oh, I might as well stay here because I've been here for however amount of time. But it's just so compelling because it feeds all those wounds.
It does. It does. And it really keeps us trapped in them. And it also keeps us from understanding how the dark works, because we start to internalize it and think, okay, I have to do all this inner work and things will change. And it's good to do the inner work. Of course, that's a huge part of it. But it kind of places us in the position where we're taking full responsibility for the health of the relationship and the other party's doing nothing.
Right.
Or in the case, if we have somebody who's hijacked and is just, sort of like a portal for us to be attacked and our energy to be siphoned and co-opted, it kind of hides the man behind the curtain, and it puts the blame on us. It's our wounds, it's our childhood shit, when it's really, no, we're being, our asses are being kicked hyperdimensionally.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then you keep signing up for the ass kicking. Like, yes, yeah. Yeah, that's so ridiculous. So is twin flame an actual thing?
Twin flames are an actual thing. I don't like the term twin flames as much as I like Hyros Gamos, or a rod and staff pairing, which is a metaphysical phenomena or term. And basically, it's kind of like I was saying before, that with the a Hyros Gamos pairing, it's something that we first have to anchor within ourselves, because what does tend to happen, and this accounts for the false twin flame interfacing system, is that within our own light body architecture, a lot of women have not built up our masculine, or there's issues or there's distortions around our own masculine energy. So it's our own inner hero or our own inner protector, provider, beloved that we haven't really raised up within our light body. So we project it outside of ourselves and draw in this masculine from our pain body to just provide that feedback. So in a true Hyros Gamos pairing, what you have is you have the woman who is emanating the solar, the Sophianic essence, and a man that holds the Christic codes. And of course, they both have both architecture in their light body. But, of course, we're all dominant in one because of our gender. And so usually, all the time, really, these pairings come together. There's usually some level of mission involved. A lot of true rod and staff pairings that I know do grid work together, or other very high tech, new earth sort of technology healing that's been coming online in recent years. So there's usually, it's not even about, twin flames and I've got my twin flame and we're laying on bed watching Netflix and I'm with my boo, that kind of thing. It's not even about that. It is about serving the divine together. That's why I say you'll always know when you're dealing with a true Christic man, no matter what his religious beliefs are, because it's not necessary for him to know all this jargon,
Right.
for him to hold the codes of Christ, but he will be ready to build with you. There's a level of devotion. You don't have to be perfect and clear all your blocks and all your wounds, and I have to be perfect for him to
Yeah.
come. He can come in and see you messy, and he's still devoted.
Wow.
That is the new earth template for love. And it lets us off the hook, because I know there's a lot of teaching in spiritual circles that we have to go through all the stuff and be perfect and have all our ducks in a row before we can let a partner in, when really all a twin flame pairing really are two people who are saying yes to God and yes to each other.
Wow.
That's it.
Yes.
That's all you need.
I'm so
That's
glad
all you
you
need.
said that, because that was another big lesson that I had to learn. Because initially, upon waking, you think, oh, it's us, the spiritual people, versus the unawakened people. I stay
Yeah.
away from them. That's not good. I can't be with them like that, because that's on my path. And then meeting woke men, and like,
Mhm.
oh, they know what chakras are. Oh, they know about this and they know about that, and they're into what I'm into, and assuming that equals good, that
Mhm.
equals like me, so we're
Mhm.
alike. That's not true. Oh my God, I burned myself so many times with
Yeah.
friends, with men, because I realize there's a sleep within the awakened community, that they
Yeah.
they think
Thank you.
they are
Thank
awake.
you. Yeah.
And I'm using awake for lack of a better word. I'm sure there's
Mhm.
another word, but they're asleep pretending to be awake. And I don't think that they're lying about what they're claiming. They really believe it. But then
Mhm.
when push comes to shove, they can't show up. Their word doesn't mean jack shit. They don't mean what they say what they mean. Like nothing
Mhm.
matches. There's no integrity. And without
Mhm.
integrity, there's nothing. Then what are you? You
Yeah.
might as well be asleep, you know?
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
if all that's not matching, so it really taught me, it put me in another realization of like, whoa, there's levels even in the awakened community, in the spiritual community, because that doesn't
Mhm.
mean that they're good people. It doesn't mean that they're, that they're safe, because there's a lot of
Right.
mean spiritual people.
That's so true. And I remember, I did a lot of time in church and Christianity some time ago, and it was a similar thing, that everybody was there for different reasons, and it's not always to serve God. Without judging what people are into spirituality for, but some people use it because it does make them feel better about themselves or superior, or who knows what their reasoning is. But it's the same thing with the experience I just shared about a little while ago. I mean, this man was a yoga teacher. He has his own yoga studio. He could quote Rudolf Steiner and, Confucius, and just knew all the little phrases and memes, and just all of this stuff. And, he was a womanizer, and just really just an asshole. Just an
Right.
asshole.
That's what I'm saying. They're not, and a lot of the people that I had to like walk away from, and it broke my heart, because that's another thing, is like, you think, oh no, you're awakened and it's my awakened family and I haven't had anything, so I have to hold on to it. And you
Hmm.
have to
Hmm.
reach a point where you're like, I choose me, I'm first. I love me.
Hmm.
I have to protect me at all costs, even if it's just me and God forever. Okay, so
Hmm.
be it, because I'm not going
Yeah.
to tolerate bullshit. No
Right.
disrespect, no abuse, no talking crazy. And I started really being in that victim mindset after I would let them go. Uh, and I would think, oh, I don't know what love is. I've never been in love. I've never been loved the way I love. And God
Hmm.
told me, yes, you do, because you love. And I changed my children's lives. They don't have the life that I grew up in. I
Hmm.
changed the trajectory, and now I'm doing it through union also. and holding out for someone who holds that energy. What I wanted to ask you is it possible that a female could hold the Christ energy and the masculine hold the Sophia energy?
Yes, I do believe that that is possible. However, that's a good question. I believe
Because
that
of me.
there are some,
Yeah.
I believe there are some women who may be dominant in their masculine and vice versa. But I think that as long as things are working for them, then that's fine. It's the same thing with homosexual couples. Usually there's one that's more dominant in the masculine, more dominant, one that's more dominant in the feminine, and sometimes it does play out like that. So I think that it is entirely possible. As long as both parties aren't feeling threatened or bothered by that. I know, for myself, I usually play a pretty feminine role, and then I have the masculine that's a little bit more dominant. So I think if it were flipped, it would feel a little weird for me because that's just not my architecture. But I would imagine, I'm not saying this is gospel truth, but I would imagine that it can work out very well that way if both parties are structured and built that way. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just wondering, but then also there's the debate of well, a woman is forced to be in her masculine when she's
Yeah.
endured a lot of violence and abuse, which I
Yeah.
have. So I watch myself now and I lean back more. Now I'm more training myself to be more in the feminine because I never felt safe enough to be in my feminine because it wasn't safe. It equaled death. So the masculine had to be like on guard 100%.
Yeah.
And like in a true hero's gamos, you don't need that. Everybody's safe.
Right. Exactly. I think that in a case like that, especially if it's a matter like a survival mechanism that your masculine has had to be the dominant energy, or else, I think that as you really heal and start to balance into that energy, both energies a little bit more, and start bringing your feminine more online, that will also show in your relationship matrix. Because I know myself, and I in my first relationship with my daughter's father, my older daughter's father, it was very similar in that, I was really suppressing my feminine energy because my father pretty much rejected her. He told me to my face that he wished that I wasn't a girl. And so I became a tomboy, and I started to try to play, in my brother's little league team and do things that I thought that would impress him because he clearly favored my brother more than me. And so by the time I was in my early 20s, even though, outwardly I was very feminine, I was, modeling and, trying to be like Naomi Campbell, if you remember her. And so when I met him, he was more in the feminine. I mean, I was the breadwinner. I was making all the money. I was treating him when we went out to eat. I was making all, major decisions. I was kind of the masculine. Then I was also his mom, and when you're in that relationship, that's the biggest sign that you're with a juvenile masculine that hasn't really fully developed into the divine masculine. And I just want to say here that one thing I do see a lot of people in twin flame circles saying, especially a lot of women, they talk about my divine masculine, my DM, but you have to realize the divine masculine is a title that's earned. It's not something that you just give out to somebody who is polyamorous and sleeping around all over the place and no devotion to you, and I'll call you whenever, and you're not important to me. There's nothing divine about that. It's a title that is earned. And in this situation, when you're in a relationship where you are treating a man like you're the mother, like you're his mother, you're telling him how to act, you're telling him what not to do, that's the juvenile masculine. It will burn you out quick.
Right.
Okay, that's not a sacred partnership, that's inversion. And so so there was that situation that I was in where I was clearly operating, and it wasn't even so much my masculine was more online. It was just that my feminine, I just shut her up because she wasn't good enough. I packed her away and didn't want to let her out because I just felt like she was not good enough in the masculine. And then what I drew to myself in him was somebody who was so feminized because his family they were so emasculating to him. His masculine energy was just gone. There was just nothing. And he had to compensate by making me feel like shit. That's how he compensated. And so if there is this situation where the woman's holding more masculine and the man more feminine, we want to be very mindful that it is organic and it's just your templates happen to be that way, and not because of some stuff that needs to be healed, some non-coherent stuff that happened earlier in the timeline. So that's what I would probably caution with that. But if you find it works and everyone's happy, then hey, why not?
Right. Because with my ex-husband, he did have that where I was the leader and he was, and it worked really well for me. I was the alpha, and and I managed it. He's younger than me, so I assumed it was the age, but no, I don't think it's the age. Just I've had a really difficult life, and I know how to do hard. So I feel like I'm 200 years old. Even in my 20s, I felt 200 years old, and he hadn't lived life. He had an easy life. So to him, he didn't know how to deal with adversity. He's only good when things are great. Then he's all good. But when things are challenging, he collapses. And I shine in when things are collapsing, because that's my jam. And because I was trained since, childhood. And then like the law enforcement jobs and all that. So I assumed, oh, it's because of that. So I would explain it away to myself to stay in the relationship. But you're absolutely right. Tons of burnout, tons of resentment, because I carried the entire marriage on my back and then hated him for it, but I was the one allowing it. So I had to take my responsibility and say, whoa, I signed up for this. Like nobody put a gun to my head. It was me, and taking, responsibility, and then realizing like, do I even want marriage? Like that's just like expected, and
right.
like having to reevaluate all the beliefs. I'm not saying that I never will, but I'm saying like, inviting people to question what beliefs are they holding on to that aren't serving them and that are actually fucking up your life. Like look at all of it.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because it's so true. And especially around relationships, and specifically the whole twin flame thing, there's so many consciousness traps. And, one of my favorite sayings is that what is popular is not always right, and what is right is not always popular. And so we have a lot of these popular teachings that people just glom onto, and without realizing that what it becomes then, especially with a lot of twin flame thing, is it's a smokescreen to keep our codependency, just keeping it running. Where we're responsible for the relationship, we're responsible for his awakening, we're responsible for how he's feeling. If he's treating us like shit, it's because of our wounds, our blocks. It puts so much on you. And that in itself is imbalanced and very anti-hierogamical. So I mean, these are things that we really need to start exploring and asking, okay, I've been believing all this twin flame stuff for a long time. I subscribe to this person, and I watch this YouTube healer, and, they're putting cards out saying union is imminent, and he's thinking about
it's always imminent and it never happens, right? It's like waiting for a bus that's never going to come. Also, I don't want to exclude men that are watching. This happens with men too. I mean,
it does,
women that are all fucked up too. So it goes all the ways. And like, what's really sad is that kind of like when I had my awakening, I was the rarity, because I was surrounded, because God puts you where you're needed the most, where there's the most dark, for me anyway. And it's like, oh, thanks, I'm here. And like being the oddball, but then also in this corrupted twin flame thing that's happening, phenomenon, it's like it's grown like a virus. And you can't throw a rock without hitting 17 twin flame channels, 25 websites, and guaranteeing union, and just pay this crazy amount every month, and I guarantee union, and enter my program, and I'm with my twin flame. And like, they don't show what's really going on behind the scenes, that their life is a fucking mess and they're miserable because they want that coin, right?
So. Right, exactly. And, I think that once you build up momentum and you really get into it, and you have these huge numbers on your channel, it becomes very difficult to backpedal. I know with my, if I may touch on Andy and I, I'm not saying whether we're twin flames or not, but I do see that Andy and I have taken different trajectories that have caused me to have to change the form of my relationship and pull my energy out. So it was very hard to do that because, you know, people thought that we were this and that. And I'm not saying that we were or weren't. I don't know. I don't care, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I
Yeah.
just know that, you know, when you're in any situation, regardless of whether it's a twin flame, soulmate, or just your divine boo, if they're not willing to meet you where you're at, or
Yeah.
embody the work where to the point where you're carrying the entire energetic load, emotional load, everything for the relationship, regardless of what you believe it to be, you really need to stop and really start making some assessments from a place of truth instead of a storyline that you're hoping to live out because you're, you know, you're still operating on some level of whether it's princess programming or whatever it is,
Yeah.
neediness or whatever is going on within you. It does take some deep reflection to ask, is this really a sacred partnership? Is this really working for me? Is this really who I feel God would give me if I asked him for a partner to help bring out the very best in me? Is this it?
Yeah.
And really ask, you know, I think a lot of times we just don't ask God source to show us
Right.
the truth.
Right. And also
And that's,
we're in love with the story, with the idea.
yes.
Because that's how I was. And like absolutely both men embodied the recipe, all the ingredients for us to have an amazing union, but they weren't willing. And I had to stop lying to myself. And it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
excruciatingly painful. And like it still is, but it's someone who's claiming to love me won't hurt me because
Right.
they're going to love me the way I love, which I'm absolutely, I'm accommodating, I'm compromising, but they have to do that too. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect anyone to be perfect, but I'm not going to accept abuse either, whether it's in a
Right,
friendship or a union. Abuse is
right,
just
right,
off the
right.
table, whether it's verbal, mental, emotional, in my
Mm-hmm.
face, financial, whatever, because I mean, I've run the gamut with the abuses that I've endured. And it's like, you have to learn from that, because if you don't learn from it, you know, then what was it for? It was in vain.
Right,
I'll keep repeating
exactly.
it.
Exactly, exactly. And that tells me that even though you did end up in the situation, and remember, you know, it is part of the initiation, right? But that tells me that you have a very well developed masculine, because the masculine energy, the Christ energy, is all about the truth. So when we are willing to look at the truth, ask for the truth, acknowledge the truth, that's when we really start raising our masculine architecture up. And that's what I do see. And you're right, it does go both ways. There are men in this twin flame thing and women in this twin flame thing. I see a little of both, but a little bit more on the feminine side. But a lot of us, like I was saying earlier, we're just so collapsed in the feminine, where it's all about, oh, I love him, I'll forgive him, I accept this, there's no judgment, it's all good, blah, blah, blah. If you want to just, you know, go, you know, have another experience with another woman for 10, 10 years and then
Oh
call
my
me back,
God.
I'm here. I've
Wow.
actually had people have been, maybe not 10 years, but, you know, have been waiting around 2, 3, 4 years.
Wow.
And and you know the other party is married and not speaking to them, hasn't talked to them in years, and they're still thinking there's some union. Why?
Yeah.
Because they're having these experiences where they're in 5
Oh,
5D and
the
having all this stuff, and it's
fake
like, no, you're,
evidence. Yeah.
yeah.
And another thing that I was guided, my guidance showed, is that if it's actually true and real, number one, it's unstoppable. Number two, it will never violate integrity. Never, never will you
Yes.
violate another woman. You're not going to hurt another woman just to be with your twin flame.
Hmm.
It's not going to come like that, because you
Right.
can't have deception. Because if you create a relationship from that foundation, that you're just going to breed more bacteria, more virus, more corruption, more poison. So if it's poison to start with, that tells you right there, that is not a twin flame. That is not
Yeah.
hierogamical. Because if it's there's lies, deception, hiding any secrecy whatsoever, it's corrupted. That's instant corruption. That's a quick way to tell. Because
Hmm.
there is a lot of men and women chasing people that are married, that are in relationships. Because, and if it's, I'm not saying that that can't happen, but then the other party will be compelled to get a divorce. They'll just leave.
Yes, yes, yes. That's what I always tell people. If you're with someone who you think is your twin flame and they're making no effort to leave the marriage, it ain't it.
Yeah,
It's not, it's
yeah,
that ain't it.
yeah. You're the jump
And
off.
exactly. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because this is a huge one. And I have actually talked to mostly women. I have never met a man in this situation where he was the other man, but women who are, they can't admit to themselves that basically what they are is the side chick.
Yeah.
And and I've heard them say things like, I hope I'm not sounding judgmental. I'm shaking my head because it really is sad. I think the level of self-deception, I think that a lot of people are in, to kind of justify just all of this nonsense. But they tell me, oh, he's not happy in the marriage and he needs to leave her and she's so controlling and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, that's not your problem. you
Right.
know your
Right.
problem is you think you're going to be with this man and he's not making any effort to leave her,
Yeah.
and you, no matter what you think is true of the relationship, you're the other woman, point blank.
Right. And can you live with that? Like, why would you want
Yeah,
to hurt the wife? That, to me,
right,
that's
right.
just it. See, but do you see how the dark will tempt you and like seduce you into violating your own integrity, into violating your own ethics and morals. So if it in
Hmm.
any way, shape, or form violates your ethics, morals, and integrity, that's not it. And
Right.
also it comes from a lack mindset of, oh, it's just him, it's only going to be him, nobody's ever going to love me. That's bullshit. There's 7 billion people on the planet. That is not true.
That's right. That's right. And I think there's such a romantic story built around the twin flame that people think if it's not a twin flame,
Oh, then
exactly,
I don't
that
want
they're
it.
missing
Yeah.
something out. Yeah, like they're missing out on something. And I mean, like I said, you can have a sacred partnership. It doesn't have to be the textbook definition of a twin flame. It just has to be somebody, like I said, saying yes to God's source and to you.
Right.
And
And
it's
showing
really,
up.
it's so simple, yet it's so difficult.
Right.
And yeah, and I'm so glad that you brought up that whole thing with marriage, because I do see this one a lot, or I did. I mean, I don't work with twin flames as much as I used to, but any vow taken before God is a very important, God taken before God's source and other people, like marriage vows, are very, very sacred and important. So for anybody to be, on a spiritual path and just trampling all over that so that they can get what they want,
Mm.
I mean, it's really kind of self-serving behavior, and
Right.
unfortunately, there is a lot of new age belief system that does kind of foster this kind of self-serving, it's my truth, my reality. I can create whatever I want and screw whoever feels hurt. If you feel
Right.
hurt, that's your trigger. I mean, there's a lot of that spiritual gaslighting stuff going on that kind of is like a petri dish for these kind of things. And
Yeah.
I actually had a client once, and she, I had met with her about a twin flame situation some time ago, and then she reached out to me a few years ago when I was still at Ten of Cups Ministries, and she was with a married man. He actually was divorcing his wife to be with her, but she wanted me to do energy work to keep his wife from sending her angry energy. And I was speechless, just like I am now when she said this. I was like, what? You can't be
Because they want
serious.
to make the wife the bad guy, even though
Yeah,
he's the one breaking his vows. I just saw a
right.
TikTok that said, if a man will break his vows to God, what the hell do you think he's going to do to you? You're nothing.
That's right.
Because that's
That's
the first
right.
relationship, right? So who are you?
That's right. Yeah, it's so spot on. Absolutely.
And I wanted to
Absolutely.
mention your class. Can you give me the name of your class that you have?
Hold
The
on a second.
visual
I'm sipping my
communication.
I have
Oh,
this blue
sure. So I just
blue
wanted
gate.
to share that I was a part of Sonia's class, and it helped me tremendously. I had so much healing, most significantly from the last audio. I did have it with I believe it was the third audio. And not just the third audio, but like when you would read the card of the class, you would start every class with reading the card for this class is that had codes because it would trigger events in my personal life and that would bring so much healing. So don't sign up for this if you're not serious, because you will get healing, because I experienced it. Whoa. And there's so much energy coming into the planet now that any healing we do is extra amplified. So, and she has an amazing deal, 50% off for viewers of this video. Oh my God, I can't say enough good things about it. Just, it really helped me to heal my wounds with my father and my mother. And I had so much abuse, and even for that alone, even if you're not interested in union or anything, just everybody has wounds from their parents. I mean, they did the best they could, but they were all fucked up. So, I mean, moving forward, just even because it affects your finances, it affects not just love, forget love. It affects your finances, it affects your housing, it affects the way you see yourself, it affects your health, your reproductive health, just so many things. And so just with that alone, I mean, even when you take love out of the equation, but then I mean, also we all deserve love, clean love, real love, pure love. And that's what makes life worth living.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so for your kind words about the Sacred Union Template Alchemy program. And I created the program. It just started to come in as a download because one thing that I was seeing in the fields going back to even this time last year is that there was a lot of shifting happening for the masculine, and that there were codes that were being made available to the masculine. And when I say the masculine, I do mean internally within us. And I also in men, the gender as men. And I think that it accounts for a why there has been a lot of, there's kind of like a mass exodus out of the whole twin flame thing, because a lot of women's masculine is coming online and they're seeing the truth, and they're like, you know, screw this. So they're walking away from it. But there's this mass awakening that is just kind of sweeping into the masculine collective with this sort of Grail King energy that's activating them to be warriors of truth, because this is what the masculine energy, the primary emanation, is truth. So I was guided to create this because what I was seeing in the fields and on the timelines is there are new templates for relationships that are coming online that have nothing to do with this, you know, pining away for somebody who's polyamorous, or this waiting around and chasing somebody in circles. It had nothing to do with that, but it was relationships that were entirely anchored in the energy and on the energy of devotion, and not just one another, but really in divine's devotion, God's devotion unto us. And this is a huge focal point of the class, because a lot of us have a very hard time feeling secure, whether it's in a relationship with the masculine or in anywhere of our lives, because we're not secure in God's love and devotion. So it really helps to go into your templates and pull out a lot of the templates that we've inherited from our parents, and the childhood trauma and the pain body baggage that's there, that really keeps us from moving up into these higher bandwidths where we can access these templates and be recoded and have an increased balance within our own light body architecture with our own masculine and feminine. So, I mean, this will take you a long way, whether you, want to be in a relationship or not. The whole point is not, the end result's not necessarily being in a relationship. But one thing I want to really emphasize is Hyros Gamos, that wedded garment, the wedding garment of the masculine and feminine, anchored and balanced within our light body. That is the creation code. Anything else as far as manifesting techniques or codes or whatever, that's great and good and all, but this is it. I mean, it's masculine and feminine is what makes it all happen. And so it really helps to clear out the inversions and the overlays in both aspects of your architecture and bring that into synergy, so that you can experience devotion, so that you can open up to God's devotion and Christ's devotion. And when I say Christ, I mean Christ consciousness, the emanation of Christ, and not a person per se.
Right.
And this has been, I kind of created the class kind of tentatively because I'm like, sometimes with me, I'm a Taurus, so sometimes doing something new, I have to be pushed a little. And so I put it together, and I was floored by the feedback. I really wasn't expecting it.
It's
And so,
necessary. It is so necessary, especially right now in this climate that we're in. I feel like it really helped me to heal a lot within myself that I didn't even know was there, because I think sometimes in the healing journey, you're walking blind kind of, and you're like, well, I think I'm healed. I guess I'm healed. And
until it
like,
comes and slaps you again in the face, right?
well, I just took it because I took the course thinking, oh, I'm single. I want to heal from this traumatic experience with this ex. But I'm seeing it that it healed so many other areas of my life. Like I said, the finances, the
Mhm.
abuse with my father, the abuse with my mother, and making peace with them, forgiving my father, forgiving my mother, forgiving myself for, choosing these relationships that were hurtful to me.
Mhm.
So it's so much, it's a wealth of healing that you'll receive. It's not just, one thing, because they all affect each other, right?
Right, right, right. And absolutely. And it also helps to kind of break down some of the hyperdimensional aspects of the false twin flame interfacing system. So, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, this sounds like what I'm going through or what I went through, it will help to kind of shed more light on that and just kind of pull your energy out of any inverted grid systems or reversals in your light body that are kind of feeding that or hooking you into that, while also recoding you to move into being able to house this architecture for these new earth relationships that are in the process of really grounding in now. It's not a someday thing. I've seen
Right.
them, and
And,
I know
and
many people. Yeah,
yeah, and setting us up for our mission, because I feel
right.
like I feel like I've been standing in my own way. And
Hmm.
like that really helped me to get out of my own way, just let it
Hmm.
come through. and
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
whatever is divinely orchestrated for me, it can now unfold because I cleared the path.
Hmm. 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 Absolutely. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Well, thank you
So
so
I did
much.
want to mention that I do have a coupon code that will provide 50% off of the program if you want to go check it out. The coupon code is Union 555, all lowercase. I guess that will be, I'll put it in the links and over on my channel, and Sylvia, if you could do the same, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
And
yeah,
they can
I
find
really,
that at SophiaReturns.com.
yes, if you look under products and activations, it should be under there, and just put the coupon code in at the checkout and it will take it right off for you. And it's 4 weeks of material. So it's not something that you sit down and do in one sitting. I do recommend that you take it week by week, maybe start on a Sunday or a Monday and just take it week by week so that you can integrate all of the activations. There are reflection questions that are also involved, and it's just a whole comprehensive program to really
Yeah.
um, get you moving forward and
Yeah.
accelerating with
I
that.
would suggest take it week by week, because the activations, and like I said, I assumed, oh, it's just the activation. No, it was all of it. There's codes throughout the entire thing that because I remember one time I only was able to do the card pull part, and then I had to stop for some reason, and I had to go do something else, and I couldn't come back to it till like a week later. And
Mhm,
that's another thing I love. I love that I can come back to it whenever I can, because I have kids.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so when I came in, I needed that time of just seeing the card pull, stepping away for a week, because in that week, whoa, I got major healing from just the
mhm,
card pull. And it was exactly what the card pull was talking about. That's what unfolded throughout that week. And it
mhm,
really shocked me. I was very shocked that it was such a visceral experience. And
mhm, mhm,
like it's so magical, but it's like it's beautiful when you're divinely guided to something that
mhm,
that is such an elixir for your soul. It
mhm.
was very powerful for me. So thank you
Oh,
for
thank
creating this.
you.
And that is a huge discount that is incredibly generous. It you can't knock it. I mean, even if it was double the price, because I got so much out of it. And I think that like you really sometimes you're scrambling to see what is the thing. And for me, I hadn't forgiven my parents, and I really needed to do that. And
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a system. I think sometimes we go to a healer and we're like, okay, just fix me. But I think about this program here is it assists you, it brings in the codes and then the stuff comes up and you kind of do it, and God starts showing you where it's at so that you can start weeding out the garden. And I think it helps. I'm more facilitating the energies, but it really, I think, empowers you to start pulling and weeding out that garden.
yeah, lots of healing. And then also the way I parent, because it's so different. It affects everything. It affects your money, it affects your clients, it affects your family, personal friendships that I had to end because you don't just get abused in a romantic union. You can be abused in friendships. And seeing what no longer serves you. And that doesn't mean that the people can't grow and change and come back, we can both be healthier. That of course that definitely happens, but it's also, it's a lesson for everybody, right?
I think so.
We're each other's teachers. We're the perpetual student teacher. We take turns. So
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
No victims. There's no victims. Everything is divinely orchestrated. So people can get more information about you at SophiaReturns.com, right? That's the website.
Yes.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I think that it's just that we should all get very excited because there is a new template that's being offered to us. And I think, again, that this is why the twin flame thing has been such a powerful initiation, while at the same time, the dark has kind of thrown it out there to slow us down, but it didn't quite work out that way. If anything, it accelerated our growth and expansion. And so now this template is here. And I think for those of us who are seeking to find more ability to manifest organically using our Hyros Gamos templates, that creation code, or even having a partnership, should get very excited because there is this sort of awakening and expansion that's sweeping the planet. It's affecting relationships. It's this more heart-centered relationship around the energy of devotion. And there's just no stopping it. So, I do encourage you that if you've been through this experience, you're still kind of battle weary, you're wearing your battle scars, know that there is a healing balm that's being offered from Holy Mother, Holy Father to assist you in seeing what purpose it served to create. And not only that, but giving you the grace to start putting it in, making it a story that no longer defines you. Any of your relationship stories no longer defining you because the timelines are done.
Right.
And, our roles that we were playing in those storylines are over, and we're moving and co-creating this entirely new paradigm, the age of Aquarius. And I love that Aquarian energy is so often associated with freedom. And I think that just, meditating on freedom and what that means for us personally and collectively, and knowing that we're here, regardless of how it looks on the outside. I know it's kind of a shit show in the world right now, but knowing our timeline's secure, we've got this, we're going there, and nothing's stopping it.
Absolutely. And like, of course, things have to collapse so that new can, because we have to create from a new foundation. Like you said, creating from the pain body. All my past, and I'm not only blaming the men that I was with, because I played a part too. I was very codependent. I thought I needed them. And coming from all the wounding of my father, of like not being good enough, how you said about your dad, and you have to be perfect, and that is the message that we've received in the false light community of like, you have to be completely healed, completely perfect to serve others and to be in union. You have to look like a Barbie doll. You have to, all these things. And that's just not true, because that's not life. And if you reach perfection, guess what? You're going to die, because that means you're done here, because this is an experience where, like a school, we're all learning. No one is going to be perfect. Your partner certainly is not going to be perfect. And you shouldn't expect that, but then also don't expect that of yourself. We're so hard on ourselves, right?
Well, let me ask you this, because, you know, so many of us in the spiritual community and even in the whole twin flame thing, we can love the other person unconditionally, but can you receive that same unconditional love for yourself? Because, you know, when you can, you don't have to heal 2 million blocks just to draw somebody in. Can you allow somebody to see you as you are?
Right.
Allow yourself to be seen without changing anything, no matter how messy that is, no matter how much, oh, I'm too this, or I'm not that enough, or I, you know, whatever the story is. Can you allow somebody to come in and see this, and you look in their eyes and still see the beloved being reflected back to you?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Because they're going to see it anyway. If they're in your bed, they're going to see it. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're going to be all up in your stuff.
But also at the same token, you have to be open to their messiness, right? Because they're not going to be perfect either. And just having compassion for each other and coming at it from that space of like, solution oriented, growth oriented, like how are we going to figure this out? Where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Exactly. And knowing there's a difference between messiness and toxic craziness.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's where you have to go through your checklist of does it have integrity, morals, ethics, values? Am I being seen, heard, whatever? And going. And
sometimes it takes time to gauge that out. So, you know, don't be afraid of being wrong, and don't, you know, you may find out that you're right, and, you know, or vice versa. You know, it's really about having that discernment and seeing, okay, is he walking his talk? Is he talking his walk? You know, and just really kind of kind of looking at that and looking through that lens.
Yeah. And am I, you know, always self-reflecting too. Am I being toxic? Am I being codependent? Am I walking my talk? Because it's both, right? It's both learning from each other, feeding off each other, uplifting and aimed at the higher good for all.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom, and I hope to have you back soon. I would love that.
Oh, I would love that too. I had a good time. I don't do these much, so I'm always honored to be able to just share whatever God puts on my heart. And I feel like this was a huge and very important topic. So yeah.
Because right now it's sweeping the world, the whole twin flame phenomenon. And again, it doesn't mean it's not true. It's just it shouldn't be toxic. That's all. To anyone, to the man or the woman. It should be uplifting, healing. It should be a safe haven and a balm, not a nightmare.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So Sylvia, thank you so much for allowing me on your platform. You know, it's been a really fun time with you, and yeah, I hope you all will check out the Sacred Union Alchemy Template Alchemy program. I think it will really be able to support you, for those of you who resonate with what we've been sharing here.
Absolutely, and good luck on your journey. Don't give up. Anything's possible, and heal for yourself. Don't heal for anybody else. Heal for you.
That's right.
And your kids are watching, you know, I do it for them too, because they're watching me, and I want to be the example of what my parents weren't, to show them the way through example, not by forcing it down their throat or a gun to their head. Like, hey, you're your own person, you make your own choices, but let me just walk my truth, and you're gonna see, and then eventually they'll follow, hopefully, right? So, thanks again.
You're welcome. Thank you. And just bless everyone with love. Have a wonderful day. And yeah.
Thank you. Bye.